What happened to Minnie Riperton still brings tears to fans decades after her death. While other soul singers were conforming to radio-friendly formulas, Minnie pushed vocal boundaries that most considered impossible to achieve.
Well, when I was a little kid, I used to rehearse to those, those kind of things, so I just did stuff like that.
But at just 29 years old, when her voice was at its peak, a devastating diagnosis would silence the most extraordinary instrument in music history forever.
It happened that abruptly. I got cancer. I lost a breast. But I saved the rest of my life because I examined myself early.
The decision to reveal her terminal diagnosis would inspire millions but cost her the privacy she desperately needed in her final days. So, let's get into it. The story of Minnie Riperton begins in Chicago's Bronzeville neighborhood, where a little girl's voice was already doing things that shouldn't have been humanly possible. Born on November 8, 1947, Minnie Julia Riperton was the youngest of 8 children in a working-class African-American family. But from the moment she could speak, everyone knew there was something different about her. Her parents, Thelma Inez Matthews and Daniel Webster Riperton, a Pullman porter, recognized her vocal and musical abilities early and encouraged her to pursue music and voice training. What they discovered was a child who possessed what would later be described as a 5-octave vocal range, something so rare that most people didn't believe it was real when they first heard it.
Well, when I was a little kid, I used to rehearse to those, those kind of things, so I just did stuff like that.
At Chicago's Abraham Lincoln Center, she received operatic vocal training from Marion Jeffrey, who practiced breathing and phrasing with her, with particular emphasis on diction. Jeffrey wasn't just teaching a talented child. She was nurturing what she believed could be one of the greatest operatic voices of a generation. Jeffrey was so convinced of her pupil's abilities that she strongly pushed her to further study the classics at Chicago's Junior Lyric Opera. But Minnie's heart was pulling her in a different direction. The young Riperton was becoming interested in soul, rhythm and blues, and rock, while her classical training was giving her the technical foundation that would make her legendary. The music coming out of Chicago's South Side was speaking to her soul in ways that opera never could. After graduating from Hyde Park High School, she enrolled at Loop College, now named Harold Washington College, and became a member of Zeta Phi Beta sorority. But the call of music was too strong. She dropped out of college to pursue her music career, a decision that would have seemed reckless if anyone had known what was really possible with a voice like hers. Riperton's first professional singing engagement was with the Gems when she was 15. The group was performing as backing vocalists for some of the biggest names in Chicago's music scene, giving Minnie her first taste of the professional recording world. What nobody realized was that Minnie Riperton's voice was perfectly designed for what was coming next, a musical experiment that would either launch her into stardom or destroy her career before it really began. In 1966, some months after her Andrea Davis singles hit the radio, Riperton joined Rotary Connection, a funky rock soul group creation of Marshall Chess, the son of Chess Records founder Leonard Chess. This wasn't just another band, it was a radical experiment in pushing the boundaries of what soul music could become. Marshall Chess was the director behind a startup label, Cadet Concept Records, and wanted to focus on music outside of the blues and rock genres, which had made the Chess label popular. His vision was revolutionary. Take the emerging psychedelic sound and fuse it with the soul music that Chess Records was famous for. He recruited Charles Stepney, a vibraphonist and classically trained arranger and producer, whose genius for orchestral arrangements would become legendary. The band that emerged was unlike anything the music world had ever seen. Marshall then recruited members of a little-known white rock band, the Proper Strangers, Bobby Sims, Mitch Aliata, and Ken Venegas. Combined with Sidney Barnes, a songwriter within the chess organization, and Judy Hoff, plus chess receptionist Minnie Riperton, they created something that defied easy categorization. Their 1967 debut album, Rotary Connection, had various styles, borrowing heavily from pop, rock, and soul, but was not radio-friendly. This chamber pop masterpiece was recorded with members of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra and features a sitar. But the real revelation was Riperton's voice, which was used here as a background instrument, almost like the way the Beach Boys used the theremin in Good Vibrations. The music industry didn't know what to do with them. Their exotic blend of psych soul chamber pop was truly original, the musicianship top-notch, and the vocals out of this world. But radio stations couldn't figure out where to place music that was simultaneously too sophisticated for pop radio and too experimental for R&B stations. In 1968, Rotary Connection released their second and third albums, Aladdin and Peace. Aladdin found Riperton assuming a more prominent vocal role than the background instrument status she had on the debut. Her voice was beginning to emerge as the group's secret weapon, capable of sounds that seemed to come from another planet. Peace was a Christmas release, with strong messages of love and understanding for a nation in the grips of Vietnam. The album's cover art featured a hippie Santa Claus, but the album also created controversy that would follow the band. Peace was notable for being involved in controversy. An anti-war cartoon in a December 1968 edition of Billboard magazine featured a graphic image of a bruised and blood-covered figure that some associated with the album's anti-war messaging. The experimental nature of their work even extended to backing other artists. Chess felt that he could revive the career of bluesmen Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf by recording 2 albums of experimental, psychedelic blues with members of Rotary Connection as the backing band. Ultimately, blues purists criticized the psychedelic sound of Electric Mud and the Howlin' Wolf album. During this period, Minnie met the man who would change her life forever. During her time with the Rotary Connection, Riperton met songwriter and producer Richard Rudolph. They married in 1969 and had a son, Mark Rudolph. But even as her personal life was finding stability, Rotary Connection was struggling to find commercial success that matched their artistic innovation. Rotary Connection went on to record 6 albums, including a long player of Christmas songs, but never really broke out nationally. By 1971, the experiment was ending, but Minnie Riperton's real journey was just beginning. After Rotary Connection dissolved, Minnie Riperton seemed to disappear from the music world entirely. In 1973, a college intern for Epic Records found Riperton in semi-retirement. She had become a homemaker and a mother of 2 in Gainesville, Florida. But what the industry assumed was the end of her career was actually just the beginning of her legend. After he heard a demo of the song Seeing You This Way, the rep took the tape to Don Ellis, VP of A&R for Epic.
See it this way, it makes me feel so.
The demo showcased something that still seemed impossible, a voice that could effortlessly glide from deep, soulful tones into registers so high they seemed supernatural. Riperton signed with Epic Records, and the family moved to Los Angeles, California. The album that emerged from this new partnership would change everything. The subsequent record, Perfect Angel, became one of Riperton's best-selling albums. But what made this album special wasn't just Minnie's voice. It was the collaboration with a young musical genius named Stevie Wonder, who co-produced the album and contributed original compositions. Sales of the album started out slow. Epic was ready to move on to the next record, but Rudolph convinced them to release another single. That decision would create one of the most recognizable songs in popular music history. With the fourth single, Lovin' You, the album caught on, and in April 1975, the song went to the top of the charts in the US and 24 other countries.
Loving you is easy 'cause you're beautiful.
Lovin' You wasn't just a hit. It was a phenomenon that defied everything the music industry thought it knew about what mainstream audiences would accept. Lovin' You, as the story is told, was originally supposed to be a lullaby for her then 2-year-old daughter, Maya. The song featured Minnie's voice soaring into what became known as the whistle register, hitting notes so high that some people initially thought they were hearing instrumentation rather than a human voice. The song reached number 2 in the UK singles chart and number 3 on the USR and B charts. It sold more than 1 million copies and was awarded a gold disc by the RIAA in April 1975. Perfect Angel went gold, and Riperton was finally revered as the lady with the high voice and flowers in her hair. The year 1974 proved to be big for Riperton, as her album Perfect Angel was certified gold by the RIAA. But success brought its own challenges. Early reviews labeled her the piccolo coloratura because her coloratura soprano abilities were so astonishing that many people incorrectly attributed the notes to funky instrumentation. In 1975, she returned to the studio to produce 1975's Adventures in Paradise. And although it didn't mirror the success of Perfect Angel, it was popular with R&B audiences. Despite the R&B hit Inside My Love, the album did not match the success of Perfect Angel. Some radio stations refused to play Inside My Love due to the lyrics. The controversy showed that even at the height of her success, Minnie Riperton was still pushing boundaries that made some people uncomfortable. But even as she was conquering the music world, something was happening in her personal life that would change everything. The voice that had given her everything was about to face a challenge that no amount of talent could overcome. In January 1976, Riperton was diagnosed with breast cancer. In April, she underwent a radical mastectomy. By the time of diagnosis, the cancer had metastasized, and she was given about 6 months to live. The woman whose voice had seemed invincible was facing a battle that would test every ounce of strength she possessed. Despite the prognosis, she continued recording and touring. She was one of the first celebrities to go public with a breast cancer diagnosis, but she did not disclose that she was terminally ill. This decision would prove to be one of the most courageous and controversial choices of her career. On August 24, 1976, Riperton revealed on The Tonight Show that she had undergone a mastectomy due to breast cancer.
It happened that abruptly. I got cancer. I lost a breast. But I saved the rest of my life because
The revelation shocked the entertainment world and her fans. At a time when such personal medical information was rarely shared publicly, especially by Black women in entertainment, Minnie's openness was revolutionary. The public revelation came with a hidden cost that most fans never knew about. According to sources close to the situation, lots of fans think that the constant media attention following her diagnosis made her final years more difficult than they needed to be. Even though nothing is proven, all evidence suggests that she struggled with the loss of privacy during the most vulnerable period of her life. But Minnie transformed her diagnosis into a platform for advocacy that would save countless lives. In 1977, she became a spokesperson for the American Cancer Society. In 1978, she received the American Cancer Society's Courage Award, which was presented to her at the White House by President Jimmy Carter. During this period, some conspiracy theories reveal that her advocacy work was motivated by more than just altruism. The internet went crazy saying that she knew other women in the entertainment industry who had received similar diagnoses but were too afraid to speak publicly about them. It's not confirmed, but all evidence points towards her feeling a responsibility to break the silence that was costing women their lives. Her openness about medical intervention during this period also sparked controversy. In a 1978 interview, Riperton spoke candidly about using alternative methods to manage her treatment side effects. "I don't consider certain natural remedies to be harmful," she stated. "I have found that some natural approaches help alleviate nausea, stimulate appetite, and aid sleep." Her public acknowledgement of using unconventional treatments was significant at a time when such discussions were rare among public figures. During the recording of her final, non-posthumous album, Minnie, her cancer progressed to the point that she was in a great deal of pain. Extreme lymphedema immobilized her right arm in early 1979. In her final singing appearances on television, her right arm remained in a fixed position during her performances.
The way you held me, no one could tell.
Even as her body was failing, Minnie Riperton's voice remained as powerful as ever. But time was running out, and everyone who loved her knew that the final chapter of her story was approaching faster than anyone wanted to accept. In 1978, Richard Rudolph and Riperton's attorney, Mike Rosenfeld, orchestrated a move to Capitol Records for Riperton and her CBS Records catalog. In April 1979, Riperton released her fifth and final album, Minnie. Memory Lane was a hit from the album, but recording the album had become a heroic act of will that few people understood. During the recording of the album, her cancer progressed to the point that she was in immense pain. A cancerous tumor paralyzed her right arm in early 1979, leading to live performances with her arm held in a fixed position. Every note she sang was a victory against a body that was systematically shutting down. Near her death, in concert, she changed the end of "Lovin' You," Maya, 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 to Maya, Maya, Ringo, Maya, adding her son's nickname to the song that had made her famous. It was a small change that carried enormous emotional weight for everyone who knew what it meant. In the June of 1979, Minnie was confined to bed, and she entered Cedars-Sinai Hospital for the last time on Monday, the 9th of July. During her final days, sources close to the family reveal that she experienced adverse reactions to prescribed pain medications. As a result, she was permitted to use alternative methods to manage her symptoms, reflecting her continued advocacy for patient autonomy in medical care. On Thursday, July 12, 1979, at 10 a.m., she died in the arms of her husband. July 12, 1979, at age 31, Minnie Riperton succumbed to cancer in her husband's arms, while listening to a song written especially for her by her friend Stevie Wonder. The voice that had touched millions was finally silent. That Sunday, following a funeral service attended by more than 500 mourners, Riperton was interred in the Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery in Los Angeles. Her epitaph is the opening line of her most famous song, "Lovin' You is easy 'cause you're beautiful." After Riperton died, several artists contributed vocals to tracks she had recorded before her death to help compile Richard Rudolph's final tribute to his wife, Love Lives Forever. The album became a testament to how much the music community had loved and respected her artistry. Her legacy extended far beyond her music. Stevie Wonder paid tribute to Riperton during an episode of the TV show Soul Train, which aired shortly after her death in September 1979. Her influence on future generations of singers became undeniable. Artists like Mariah Carey, Whitney Houston, and Alicia Keys all cited her as a major influence on their vocal techniques. Her daughter, Maya Rudolph, has honored her mother's legacy throughout her career, though she has expressed frustration with the media's constant focus on her mother's death rather than celebrating her life and artistry. The family established the Minnie Riperton Legacy Fund, which has raised over $1 million to support cancer research focused on immunotherapy. Minnie Riperton's story reminds us that sometimes the most beautiful voices shine brightest just before they're silenced forever. Her courage in the face of terminal illness, her advocacy for cancer awareness, and her revolutionary approach to vocal artistry continue to inspire artists and fans around the world. The lady with the high voice and flowers in her hair left us far too soon, but her impact on music and medical advocacy will never be forgotten. That's the story of Minnie Riperton, a voice that defied gravity, a spirit that refused to be silenced, and a legacy that continues to bring tears to fans who understand what the world lost when she left us. Anyway, that's it for the video, folks. Bye.